7th grade. So today I'm going to go through the same steps that I did last week with you. I'm going to, on this first video, just read through your passage, and then I'll make a second video that's going to give you some tips, help you figure some answers to some questions out, and go through those questions with you. So if you don't need to listen to me read, just go ahead and move on to the next video. All right, here we go if you're listening to me read. Organisms and the environment. The ecosystem includes all the communities of living things in an area and the non-living factors that affect their survival. Those are those biotic and abiotic factors that we've already talked about. Most of the organisms that live in the forest are not going to be found in a desert. The organisms that live in an ecosystems are adapted to their conditions in their specific area. If those conditions change, some organisms will die or they're going to migrate to a new home. Remember, animals are very, very smart. They're not just going to lay down and die. If they can, they're going to move on to help themselves survive. Humans can cause an environment to change, resulting in the loss of some species. All organisms need energy to survive. The source of energy for almost all living things is the sun. Plants and algae, which we also call producers, absorb radiant energy from the sun and convert it into food. So that's where we get with the photosynthesis that comes in. Animals must get their food by eating plants or by eating other animals. They are called consumers. All animals that eat plants are called herbivores. Some animals eat other animals and are called carnivores. When living things die, bacteria and fungi break down their remains and return them to the soil. And the things that do that are called decomposers. There are different producers, consumers, and decomposers in every ecosystem, but they play the same role or niche in that environment. To understand, we use models called food webs. The food web is an overlapping combination of all food chains in the ecosystem. Remember that all food webs are going to begin on the bottom with some type of producer, guys. And then the arrows, again, some of you still aren't getting this right. The arrows in a food web point to where the energy is going, not what eats what. So for instance, if you were going to draw a food web of a producer like a grass and a rabbit was going to eat it, you would draw the grass at the bottom and the arrow is going to point upward to the rabbit because the rabbit is getting the energy from the grass. It's not going to point downward from the rabbit back down to the grass because that would say that the grass got its energy from the rabbit, and that is not true. So make sure, it's very, very important that you know which way those arrows are going, and they're showing the flow of energy, which way the energy is going, not what is eating what. All right, here we go. Where am I at? The food web is an overlapping combination of all the food chains in an ecosystem, showing the producers and consumers with arrows between them in order to show the flow of energy. Many organisms interact in the ecosystem. Some animals kill other animals for food, and they are called predators. Often, there are several animals in an ecosystem that must compete for the same food. Some animals or plants live together in ways that benefit both of them. The table shows some of the relationships within an ecosystem. So the first relationship is called mutualism. So if you ever hear somebody say that the feeling is mutual, it means that it's the same on both sides. So that means that both organisms in mutualisms are benefiting from it. They're getting good. So both organisms are getting good. So the examples that they're giving you are a moth pollinates the flower. So the moth is pollinating the flower so the flower can reproduce. And then the plant is actually providing camouflage or protection for the moth. So it goes both ways. So both of those organisms are benefiting, and that is called mutualism. The second one they have listed as neutralism. In our Measure Up book, when we did the lesson in our Measure Up book, this is what they call commensalism in our Measure Up book. It's the same thing. So it's when one organism is helped and the other one's not affected at all. So it's helping one organism, but the other organism isn't being helped or harmed. And the example they're giving for that is a small fish called a remora attaches to the shark and eats the food left by the shark. So the little fish, the remora, is getting its sustenance, its meals from the shark, but it's not hurting the shark in any way. And it's not helping the shark either. So it's mutualism, or in this case, neutralism. If we're talking about our Measure Up lesson, it would be mutualism. All right, the last one on your diagram here is parasitism, which we talked about quite a bit. So parasites are going to be things like ticks, fleas, leeches, mistletoes, things that get their energy from other things. They can't survive at all on their own. They must get their energy from attaching themselves to something else and getting the energy from that. So in a parasite, one organism is helped. So it would be like the leech getting the blood that it needs from a human if it attached to you. And then as a human, you're the one harmed. So the example they're giving you is the mistletoe that we've talked about in class. So a mistletoe grows on the bark of trees, taking away the tree's nutrients. So it's hurting the trees, but the mistletoe is getting nutrients from that. Again, that mistletoe cannot survive unless it's attached to that particular tree. It cannot grow at all on its own. All right, bottom half. Living things are adapted to their environment. A rose bush would die in the desert tundra. Yet another plant live in both of these habitats. The population of organisms depends on which biotic factors, food, competitors, predators, and abiotic factors, temperature, water, sunlight, and minerals are available. Certain traits allow organisms to survive in their environment. We call these traits that help an organism survive adaptations. When conditions in the environment change, some living things survive and pass these adaptations along to their offspring. A predator's sharp teeth or a plant that can survive a drought are examples of some adaptations. Some traits of organisms are the result of the environment in which they live. Some plants have traits that are present in certain environments. The hydrangea plant produces blue flowers when it's growing in acidic soil. But some plants' flowers will be pink if it is grown in a soil that is basic or has a high pH. So that last paragraph is going to lead you to the answer to number 2 on the following page. So the soil type of a hydrangea. If the soil is acidic, it's going to produce blue flowers. If the soil is basic or it has a high pH, it's going to produce pink flowers. So that's your answer to number 2 when you go to the next page. I want to go back and talk some more about adaptations that can help an organism survive according to temperature. So think about things like adaptations that animals have to help them survive cold weather or hot weather. So things like shedding their winter coat in the summer, or some organisms that live in the tundra, their coat actually changes color when it goes from summer to spring, or the other way around. So be thinking about some of those things. All right, I will see you in the next video, and I'll help you out with some of these questions.